Would you argue that Johnson is a slave name?
Absolutely.
I ask this particularly because a lot of Black Americans still to this day carry their previous slave.
Don't say Black American, say American African.
American African.
Yes, sir.
You do know that a lot of African Americans don't like that term.
Well, they use African American. We're comfortable with African American.
Yeah.
But I prefer American African.
Okay.
Because we are not Americans, never have never been treated as such.
Yeah.
And the adjective precedes the noun. So when you say African American, you're describing a type of an American.
Okay.
We're not Americans. When you say American African, you're describing a type of an African.
I am not an African. I am a Black American. What that means is that my entire family has come from America. I am the descendant of people that were slaves. That's what that means when I tell you that I am a Black American. That means that the people that have been in my family for generations built this country.
We are no longer accepting the name African American. We are not African American, and I don't know what Jesse Jackson was thinking back then because we've never really liked the term anyway. What we need to do is on a nationwide level, we need to petition the courts, petition the census, submit what we need to do legally to the government to change our name. We no longer want to be called African American. Cross out African American wherever you can on a form and rewrite either ethnic Black American, ADOS, foundational, whatever you choose, indigenous, Sulan. Do not accept this name anymore.
I am not a Black American. I'm an African American. In America, you are seen as Black. However, geopolitically, we're seen and treated as African. Africa is the global cash cow. Not only has the land itself been exploited, also its indigenous people and their descendants. The same reason why we still experience economic exploitation, inequality, and injustice is the same reason why the Congolese, Afro-Caribbeans, and Afro-Latinos still experience the same hardships, irregardless of admixture, language, or religion. From a geopolitical perspective, we're all perceived and treated the same.
What does it mean to be called African American? Once upon a time, that name represented pride, a bridge between the motherland and the modern struggle. It replaced words meant to shame us, but now a new generation is asking, does the term still fit? Some say they're Black, some say they're FBA or Foundational Black Americans. Others identify as Diaspora Africans. So who's right? And what happens to our politics and unity if we can't even agree on a name?
I really hate when people with big followings use their followings to spread misinformation. I just saw this content creator earlier today say that she is not an African American, she is an indigenous American, when it's very visible that you are African descended. Her main point is, if I'm an African descended person, then what country in Africa am I from? That just shows me you're not doing any research at all, girl. You don't actually care. You just want to be wrong. Somebody literally said that their grandparents are older than the country of Nigeria, so how could they be African, right? And I'm just like, oh my God, do y'all think that pre-1960 it was just water? Then October 1st, 1960 came around and suddenly there's trees, there's soil, there's grass, there's a country? That's not how this stuff works.
The term African American became popular in the late 1980s, largely due to Jesse Jackson. He said, "We built this country. We have a heritage that goes back to Africa. It's time we recognize both." It was powerful. It connected descendants of slavery in America to their African ancestry, giving cultural depth to a people whose roots were stolen. For the first time, the label held dignity.
I would say the Africans and the American Negro have turned out to be an extraordinarily gifted people. I am an American, born there. My father slaved there. Upon the backs of my people was developed the primary wealth of America. But just like a Scottish American is proud of being from Scotland, I'm proud for being African. Now, in our school books, they tried to tell me that all Africans were savages, till I got to London and found most of the Africans I knew were going to Oxford and Cambridge and doing very well. So I would say today that I'm an American who is infinitely prouder to be of African descent. No question about it. No question about it. I'm an Afro-American, and I don't use the word American ever loosely again.
There's the thing, Vlad, where people want to make us generic Africans. The term African American is a misnomer. That was a term that got popularized in 1988 by Jesse Jackson, the Congressional Black Caucus, and the Democrats. No, we as a group, we never called ourselves African American. I think the term African American was in a book in the 1700s by a black preacher. I forgot what the guy's name, but that was the only time we would see that term during slavery. That was a term that we generally didn't use. Really, it didn't get popular until the late 80s. And the term was given to us, and that term was given to us to make us comparable to immigrants. It was to say that we're just like an Italian American, we're just like a Mexican American. So that was to basically almost sanitize our unique history here, and that worked against us. The term African American is a misnomer. Elon Musk is an African American.
What is your nationality?
My nationality is Afro-American.
What is freedom?
Freedom is black power.
What is black power?
Black power is...
Do you know what black power is?
No.
Well, then you should never should never make any statements if you don't know what they mean.
I'm sorry, I don't know.
All right. How old are you, young man?
I am 4 years old.
Today's Gen Z doesn't live in the world of Jesse Jackson. They've grown up with Pan-African influences, global migration, and social media. That connects Ghana to Chicago in seconds. So when they hear African American, they ask, which African are you talking about? Because now America has foundational Black Americans, descendants of enslaved Africans in the US, Diaspora Africans who are new immigrants from Nigeria, Ghana, Ethiopia, the Caribbean and beyond, and multiracial Americans with complex mixed heritages.
Is African a slur in America? Because honestly, up until the lady said dirty African, when she said African, I was like, come again? Because that's a compliment. I cannot shut up about being African. I love it so much. First thing people, where are you from? Africa, West Africa. And then I say Gambia. This lady said African, I was like, okay, come again? That's not a drag. Then when she said dirty African, I was like, now you got me all kinds of messed up.
Despite the debate, the term African American still carries power. Firstly, there's historical continuity. It honors a political lineage from slavery to freedom, from Martin Luther King to Barack Obama. It reminds the world that Black Americans have an ancestral connection to Africa, that we are not rootless. It once united millions under a shared identity for civil rights and recognition. It's widely accepted in government, schools, and media, giving a recognizable political category. And finally, it acknowledges that despite centuries of separation, African blood still flows in American identity. But the same reasons that make it powerful also make it vulnerable. Don't just scroll. Join the conversation. Like, share, and subscribe so more people start questioning the labels they have been given. So what are the problems with the African American label? The term African American was originally meant to describe descendants of enslaved Africans in the United States, people of sub-Saharan descent who survived chattel slavery. But now the label is being diluted. We see white South Africans who immigrate to America calling themselves African American. Elon Musk, born in South Africa, can technically use the term. That's the problem. the term African American has become so geographically defined that it's losing its cultural and historical meaning. When a billionaire of European descent can claim African American, it exposes how language can erase lineage. And that's why movements like Foundational Black Americans and American Descendants of Slavery emerged to reclaim specificity, to say no, African American does not just mean anyone from Africa who's now in America. It means the descendants of those enslaved here, who built this nation with unpaid labor. So yes, the label can unite, but it can also blur the truth of who paid the price for America's freedom.
We don't understand the sense of self that Africans have and people from the Caribbean have, because they didn't grow up in the belly of the beast. You know, when you're in an area and the majority of people around you look like you have a different attitude than living in a place of hostility, on a daily basis. You don't ask for it. You go into a store, people are following you. You got this constant, and you don't have that there. I remember when I stayed in Tanzania for 6 months on a Fulbright. When I got back to New York and I landed at Kennedy Airport and I saw the white people, the rage, the stress, the rage, it came back like that.
And here's where things get serious. Politics depends on definition, on who counts. If African American becomes so vague that anyone can use it, what happens to policies meant for descendants of U.S. chattel slavery? Who gets reparations? Who qualifies for affirmative action? And beyond policy, what happens to solidarity? If we lose the ability to distinguish between lineage and location, we risk weakening the political power that generations fought to build. At the same time, rejecting the term entirely could fracture Black identity further.
What do Zambians think about Black Americans? One funny thing, Zambians, I think we look at Black Americans like they are like us. They are like our brothers and sisters. We don't look at them to be strange. There's a motto which they say in Zambia that we are one Zambia, one nation. So anyone who looks black to us is our brother.
But whatever comes next, it must honor the past, empower the present, and protect the future. Because no matter what word we choose, the world will still see our color collectively. What matters is what we see when we look at ourselves. If this made you think, please hit like, share, and subscribe. Because on this channel, we don't just talk about labels, we redefine them.